So this set of notes on classifying triangles you've probably learned before in junior high. You do a little bit of geometry in there when you're doing some pre-algebra, so you might know all of these terms already. So this is just going to be a quick video to refresh your memory. But when you classify triangles, there's two different ways to do it. You can classify them by their angles or by their sides. So the first type of triangle, if all three angles are acute, and remember acute means less than 90 degrees, that means that you're going to have an acute triangle. Okay, so all three angles are acute. That's the first type of triangle. Again, this is just by angles. The second type is if you have one angle that's obtuse, meaning bigger than 90, then that's an obtuse triangle. So in an obtuse triangle, you have one obtuse angle, but you still have two acute angles. If you see 20 and 20, those are still acute. So you're never going to have a triangle that has more than one obtuse angle. That's not possible. So only one is obtuse, the other two are acute. And then the last type is a right triangle. And that means you have a right angle or a 90-degree angle. So you're going to have one that's right, but again, you still have two acute angles. So every single triangle ever, no matter if everybody in here or if everybody in the whole school drew a triangle, everybody's triangles would have two acute angles. It's that third angle that classifies it. So if it's also acute, then it's acute. If it's obtuse, it's obtuse. If it's right, then it's right. So those are the three ways to classify a triangle by its angles: acute, obtuse, and right. Then there's also three ways to classify a triangle by its sides. So now we're just looking at the sides. I don't care what the angles are. So the first type is called scalene. A scalene triangle has three different sides. Okay, three different sides would be scalene. It doesn't matter what those three sides are, as long as all three are different, it's a scalene triangle. When you have two that are the same, that's called isosceles. So an isosceles triangle has two equal sides. And then finally, when all three sides are the same, that's called an equilateral triangle. And we learned that term way back in September when we were talking about polygons. Any polygon that has all the sides the same, whether it's a quadrilateral or a pentagon or a hexagon, whatever, if all the sides are the same, then it's equilateral. So that would have three equal sides. So every single triangle that we could possibly make, you can classify by its angles and by its sides. So on this next slide, we have one column where we're going to classify them all by their angles. That would be on the left, and then we're going to classify them all by their sides on the right. So I'm going to stick with the same colors. If I'm classifying by angles, I'll use green. So now we're just looking at their angles. So I have two acute and one that's right. So that's a right triangle. Here I have two that are acute and one that's obtuse. So that's an obtuse triangle. Now for angles, it doesn't matter if these are the same. I had these were the same and these were the same. It doesn't matter. I'm just looking at acute or obtuse. In this one, again, I have two acute and one that's obtuse. 91 is an obtuse angle. Even though it's very close to being right, it is obtuse. Here, even though they're all the same, that doesn't matter. All three are acute, so it's an acute triangle. And then here at the bottom, again, I have three acute angles, so it's an acute triangle. Now, the other side is all by sides. So, are they the same or are they different? So, these are all different, so that's scalene. Here, all three are the same, so that's equilateral. Here I have two that are the same and one that's different, so that's isosceles. Here, all three are different again, so that's scalene. And finally, I have two that are the same and one that's different, so that's isosceles. So, when you are looking at this, if you're looking at angles, you only care about if they're acute, obtuse, or right. You don't care if any of them match. But when you're doing sides, the only thing you care about is if they do match or not. The numbers themselves really don't matter. So the fact that these are 100 yards here and these are only 6 feet, that doesn't matter. You're just looking to see if they match or not. Now, so far we've been doing just one or the other. But whenever you're given a triangle, you can classify it by both. So on this next slide, I have 3 triangles, and we're going to do it by both their angles and sides. So first I'm going to look at this triangle here. We're going to look at its angles. All 3 angles are acute, so it's an acute triangle. But now I'm going to look at the sides. I have 2 sides that are equal and 1 side that's not, so that's isosceles. So this is an acute isosceles triangle. For the next one, again, I am looking at just my angles first. So I have an obtuse angle here, so that's an obtuse triangle. And now when I look at the sides, I see that all 3 sides are different, so that's scalene. And the last one here, I don't have any numbers here. Now I just have markings, but I can still figure it out. As soon as I see that there's a right angle, I know that's a right triangle. And I can see that these 2 would be acute. And then, just by the markings, I know that these 2 sides are the same and that one will be different. So this is isosceles. So hopefully you knew these terms already before seeing these notes. Like I said, you probably learned them when you were a little bit younger, but hopefully this gave you a refresher. There is a worksheet in the crate that is just classifying. So if you're having any trouble with this, go ahead and complete that worksheet, and if you still have any questions, just let me know.